Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. That's right. I remembered. I probably forgot to get a card for my wife, but I remembered to tell you, my customers, that. And Cole, I just want you to know I love you too.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
It's a Powercat Podcast. We're back for another edition, and today we're going to talk about K-State baseball. Why? Well, because it's, mid-February. It's opening day. Jeez, college baseball. It's crazy, Cole. Just to set us up with that, what do the Cats got cooking this weekend? When this podcast posts, they're ready to play.
Yeah, I don't know if this podcast is going to go up at midnight or 7 a.m. or when it's going to go up on Friday, but there's a good chance K-State's probably playing because the first game of the season takes place at 10:05 in the morning in Conway, South Carolina. There's nothing that beats college baseball. K-State is on the road this weekend for baseball at the beach. So while there might be some snow on the ground here in Kansas, in South Carolina, there is baseball that is being played. K-State plays 2 games against Coastal Carolina. Those games are on Saturday and Monday, and then 1 game against Washington and 1 game against St. Joseph. So should be a fun weekend of baseball, but not very much rest for the weary this week because on Wednesday they will then hit the road to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to take on, UNC, and Fitz, they're number 6 in the country. So the schedule, as I'm sure we'll get into, is just absolutely outrageous. But you know what? That's college baseball. It's better to play those games and lose them than not play them at all. K-State had to figure that out the hard way. And Pete Hughes, for better or for worse, is going out and scheduling the best in the country.
Well, get your team ready. There's no doubt about it. And he's got some changes on this roster. K-State was picked 8th in the Big 12. There's only 14 schools that play baseball. Iowa State and Colorado, for weather reasons, have opted out. Don't blame them. So they're kind of middle tier in this 14-team baseball conference. But give me your overall thoughts on these Wildcats for Pete Hughes.
I was a little surprised that they were picked to finish 8th. Pete Hughes said at his media day that he doesn't pay attention to that, but those guys do. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a slap in the face or anything like that, but for a team that made a super regional, it's kind of a slap in the face. I understand they lost a lot of guys, but there's nothing that has shown me over the past 4 years that this team is going to finish 8th in the conference. I just don't see that. 8th in the conference any other year when there was 10 teams would barely get you into the Big 12 tournament. That's not going to happen. Especially when you look at their schedule, that's not going to happen. But they do have some new faces, and so I understand from that aspect. People don't follow college baseball as closely as they do football or basketball, so that's probably part of the reason they were picked there. But they do have some solid returners coming back. Nick English started as a freshman in the corner outfield spot, and that's really where I think K-State is going to see a majority of fans turn the games on. They're going to recognize the guys who were in the outfield. Nick English and Kyan Lotus played a lot last year. They'll be in the corners, and then Caden Carl sparingly played last year. He'll take over in center field, but one of the main stories, Fitz, is the infield. They lost Kalen Culpepper. They lost Brady Day. The middle infield, who's going to play the middle infield? I don't know. They also lost their third baseman, Jaden Parsons. Infield completely up for grabs.
Well, that'll be an interesting story to watch. But they brought in some transfers who could plug some of these holes. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, so D. Kennedy from Texas. And if there's one thing that I have highlighted about this transfer class, I know I just brought up D. Kennedy, but it is the sheer talent. They have raised the floor on this team, and I think it's very similar to what football is trying to do. Get guys who succeeded at their last school or guys who had the pedigree coming in who maybe didn't succeed, but either way, there's talent there. And so D. Kennedy from Texas actually had his best series of the season in Manhattan against Kansas State. He'll be a sophomore. He's got a chance to play some shortstop. My favorite fits here, Shintaro Anui. I believe I said his last name correct. He played at Western Nebraska Community College. He's from Japan, and he plays baseball exactly like you would think. You turn on the Team Japan in the World Baseball Classic, his stance, the way he approaches it, he is a prototypical Japanese baseball player. He's going to have a chance to play a lot. He hits from the left side. I really like his upside. They also brought in a guy by the name of Bear Matalack. It's an outstanding name. He's a catcher. He has to be a catcher. spent time at Georgia and then Jacksonville State last year where he hit like 350. So again, they're bringing in some guys. Maximus Martin was a former Big Ten Freshman of the Year at Rutgers before playing last season at a different institution. Now he's at K-State. So again, there is a lot of high upside on this team. They also have a really good freshman class, which we'll get into here in a second. But I really, really like this transfer class.
I like the thought of bringing in a Japanese player. I love that slap and tickle approach to slapping the ball around, and it kind of fits what Pete Hughes likes to do too. So that's very entertaining. I don't know if he can run, but if he can, he's going to fit in well with this Pete Hughes offense. You mentioned the freshman. Oh, what do we got coming in here at Kansas State for true freshmen?
So my favorite addition this season is a guy by the name of Dante Lewis, and he is a true freshman. The thing that makes Dante special is the fact that not only does he play the infield, but he also throws 95 off the mound. And as a true freshman, that's just not something you see very often. It's pretty insane. Again, K-State going back to that high upside mentality. I credit Austin Waits for so much of this recruiting. The associate head coach and the hitting coach, he develops outstanding relationships with these kids. And something that people might not know is that they've changed the rules in baseball to where you cannot officially talk to a prospective student athlete until August of their junior year, which is crazy when you think about it, because all the other sports that doesn't exist.
No.
But in baseball, coaches cannot have direct communication with players until August of their junior seasons. So before, it's really an overcorrection, Fitz, because before kids would commit when they're in 7th and 8th grade.
Right.
That would be something that they would do. Now, would their scholarships be honored? Maybe not always, but they do it. Well, now they can't do that. They might be able to commit, but if they commit that early, they're just saying they're going to go there without actually having talked to a coach. And so the fact that they're able to foster these relationships in 2 years now is really a credit to the staff. And again, I give all the credit to Austin Waits for bringing in Dante Lewis. Another guy, AJ Avasco from Nebraska. He looks like he's 23 years old. He's 6'5". He hits from the left side. He's a first baseman. He set the record at his school for home runs in a single season. So I really like his upside. They had to do a little tweaks with his swings this year, but I really like the upside of Avasco. But again, I just circled Dante Lewis because this is a guy who's going to be a fan favorite, and I think he's on that Kalen Culpepper route. He's got a chance to be a really special player.
That recruiting rule makes no sense to me. Well, this is, again, I've talked to coaches about it. They complain about something, and then they don't have a vote. They don't really have input on the solution. The admins go in there and screw it all up again. Why can't you talk to someone like before their junior year, like once their junior season starts, or as soon as their junior season's over, they can be recruited? Mm-hmm. Why should they be out of season in May, June, and have to wait a month or two to talk to a coach? It doesn't make sense.
No,
make use of that summer.
It doesn't. And it's pretty frustrating. You know, baseball is a lot different than football and basketball because of the summer circuits. And so you have these academy directors that are talking to college coaches about kids. And so they might feel like they like a kid, but you can only take somebody's word for so long until you talk to the kid and figure out if you want them in your program or not. I mean, K-State is scheduled, unofficial visits with kids when they're freshmen in high school for football, and you can't really do that now. So it's quite the interesting time.
Okay. Pete Hughes takes his team to the Super Regional last year, doesn't get him through. That's okay. That was what happened last year. Winning at Arkansas was enormous for the program. How important is this season for Hughes and the staff?
I think it's important, but I don't think it's a make or break year. And yeah. I know it's one of those things where fans are going to want them to go back to the postseason and go back to the Super Regionals. But you look at the team and they're really young. And we haven't touched much on the pitching. They're going to have 5 or 6 guys that are going to be able to compete for a rotation spot. They should have a pretty good retooled back into the bullpen with a bunch of guys who return this year. So the pitching will look pretty familiar, but you lose Tyson Neighbors. You lose some of these guys who were such a big deal last year. It's going to take them some time to adjust. I think this team has a chance to make an NCAA tournament simply based on their schedule. And as we wrap this up, I'll go ahead and read this here. It's pretty remarkable, Fitz, because it doesn't do them any favors. We already talked about playing Coastal Carolina, North Carolina, and then they have to go on the road to Dallas and in Arlington at Globe Life Field, playing in the Amergy Bank College Baseball Series with Arkansas, who's number 5 in the country, Michigan, and then TCU, who's number 23 in the country, before they make the trek on down to Frisco, just a few miles down the road, to take on number 3 LSU, number 24 Nebraska, and Sam Houston State. And so there's so many resume builders on that schedule where if you can win 4 or 5 of those games, if you can be around 500, then that's going to be indicative of a team that has a chance to make a regional.
Well, the kids are going to get some early lessons, no doubt about that. They're going to find out they're not high school stars anymore, that you got to play in the big time, you're going to face big time. And I like that, because I think K-State, if they realize the level at which they need to compete, which it took them, most of last year to get through the Big 12 schedule and go to the regional at Arkansas, to realize we got this, we're fine. Mm-hmm. If you can speed up that process, you're in better shape. I'm fascinated with this season. I'm also fascinated why we're starting baseball when I can go outside and get frostbite.
It's remarkable. First home game though is not until not until March 5th, so you might have some time. But the way that the weather's been trending, that's going to be a pretty cold game.
We're not that far away. No. I know Kansas. We're not going to be done with winter by March 5th. Mm-hmm. I've been here way too long to fall for that crap. Kansas State baseball starts its season today, Friday, as they head down to South Carolina to play some really good opponents. We'll be following it at Go Powercat. We'll, of course, post all those results over at Wabash Station, and occasionally we'll have some front page coverage of the Bat Cats from Cole Carmody or Ethan Fitzgerald, one of the two. We'll see who wants to jump into that if K-State honestly needs to be covered. We're not going to spend a bunch of time covering a team that is 8th, but if they're pushing for the upper part of this conference, yeah, we'll be there. Cole, thank you very much. I'll do it for this edition of the Powercat Podcast. Get ready, K-State basketball on Saturday. Brian Gilbert is in Utah covering that for us. Poor Utah. Why do we do that to Utah? I like Utah, and I just send Gilbert out there to mess it all up. Thanks for watching, everyone.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.